named shoplift, so that there's generate the effects of something being lifted. It's a shop, whether it's a store in one of the bazaar, named bazaar, but that's whether one of those stalls or whether a store, whether it's a shop, whether it's a store mentioned at their location where they're first of all, whether it's a store whether it's a store, whether I first reason to there for the problem, whichever reflects the reverse and the reason to verb the store dimension of or reflective of the what the pairs was, whether reflects of the reason the resultant of the reason, whether it's a store, whether a store and whether a shop, and whether it's a first, whether a location for whether to first, whether just to first, and their reason to whether to first to be considered sort of double, and whether a store and whether or whether a shop and whether a store and whether first of the property from whether reason whether a store and whether a shop. Kind of as a bit pair, and also it matches with the resultant, doesn't it? Or yeah, it's rather reflective as sort of match with the resultant if it was not with in whether to whether I first of applied. The word shoplet for many has a lot of problems. One of it is a shoplift. So this generates the effects so that the false accusation is not really as much investigated. It isn't like a lot of the stuff is just death threats. Like some kind of police report is like some measure about, if it can measure about some person does this brutal manner and goes way out of touch, way out of its roles, and goes this aggressive, but no, I said please and I'm dramatic. Was that false politeness, which are actually contaminated? How is that measuring certain sound, therefore something? In a way, that's gangsterness. It's maniacness too. And whether it's maniac, and whether it's maniacness there, whether first of, and whether before, and whether tough, and whether among other question of whether is referring and whether tough, and whether sort of does sort of denotate not so much of approval and the alternative, the arrangement of the phrases, for instance, of to power to the people. And every single word, phrases are overused. These are utterly bruises, just gun them down. There's flamethrowers too. Speaks about some person, even with a suspect, even if it's speaking, like for example, even if that's whether not maniac speaking, whether first sort of, whether before the probable, whether to have about 5 to 7 to what's the list, 75 to 40 years of age, whether some other number related statistic, for instance, whether they're indicates it's a measure, so it has capabilities to kill. And it doesn't seem all that general, so in a way it's passive aggression, it's intimidation, and it's capable of attacking others, so we better pay us some kind of ransom fee while attain it to as doing some kind of job. No, that's not going to happen around here. It's not going to happen around here. We hit them when they're at their personal palace occupied regions, McDonald. There might be mass poisoning. What target it's Palestinians, it's children. It was Cormac there and when we strangulate them to Neverland, to some other place. I really try to dress to indicate a bit, want to dress like Michael Jackson, whether namely the person whether to more of whether towards whether to more of towards whether to namely the person whether Michael Jackson, whether to namely the person named Michael Jackson, and whether to name Michael Jackson and execute or whether terminate them directly onto national television. It may not be as expensive as opening another Auschwitz, but sending them to may save them from other horrors and commercial sponsorships. The a large percentage, and also whether, and also whether a large, and whether, and also whether, and whether, and also, and whether a large percentage of the profits received from the endorsements and the commercials are going to be given to various charities, and we'll try to do the best as we can as the government of Canada. We would like to inform others we will target any civilians found guilty of domestic terrorism, and we like to continue to engage towards those while they're at their lunch or other private doings, or whether they're at there, whether stolen bastards. Our guys will enter the facility without a warrant, and if there's any damages to the equipment, straight out of the way, or whether to the doors, the recipient is responsible for such, and the on-live board camera and the well-being and discretion of the engagements from revealed to the public and uploaded, whether on the internet websites, can be later after revisitation and whether assessment and whether approval from a judicial officer, and whether from a assigned duty personnel there, and whether a team or whether groups of, and whether a group of, and whether groups, and whether of then those are going to be available there, whether going to be there then, and whether they are going to be there and then there, and whether they are going to be in there. Minor different two versions have to be considered, of course. Minor difference in pronouncing, whether minor with minor differences, and whether the minor different there, and whether to minorly, and whether it's minor different there. A lot of projects are yet to go, not too much of the problems are yet completed in solving, whether to solve to they're hearing, whether they're in recent, whether they're in recent, recent was in bracket market, so whether they're in recent, whether they're in recent was reason was in bracket market indicated whether recent, whether recent, whether and whether indicating to whether indicated and whether recent was in bracket marks of therein, whether recent was in bracket marks of whether recent therein was recent was in bracket marks of whether recent was recent, and whether was in bracket marks of whether was in bracket marks of therein denoted of whether indicated a bit minor, rather with bracket marks of whether bracket marks of the probable to be whether it's considered or whether the probable to be and whether it's minor rather in words, and whether rather with bracket mark, and whether bracket marks to of and whether to of and whether of and whether minor with minor rather, and whether minor rather with word, or whether a word rather within, whether with bracket marks, and whether bracket mark, whether and minor rather, whether minor rather, and rather minor rather, and whether minor and minor, whether and minor rather with word rather within, whether with bracket mark, and whether bracket marks to of. Whether and suitable to of. Lots of process to go through. Tons of this quizzing. Why you're not doing this? Why you're not doing that? We're doing a motherfucking spell that actually works. Shouldn't be as well with too many freaks. having all those aren't enough. The warfare isn't enough. Instead of being a hijacked place, there's imprisonment throughout places. NATO better come forward and stop getting social pressurized, get enraged in fact, right? Take risk in fact, take life level risks, engage them, because it's going to be worse, right? Sometimes it's rise up to the problems, because if the issues is that much suitable to rise up to, right? Because the enemies are actually not nice. It's Nazism. The level of inflictions is right there, and that's the level of intimidation keeps on banking off of, oh, it's going to be interpreted, it doesn't have this hostility, right? Sort of like that. A recent words there, not to provide words, and that could be considered probably as a weather, recent in weather, the probability of a weather, probability of consider of a weather, sort of a weather to consider of a weather to probable weather consider of a weather, probability of consider of a suitable summarization point there, whether a good summary mention there, whether summary, whether summary there, whether summary work point there, whether having something that says summary work there to rubble to sort of whether of which whether in word of which both in bracket marks separate bracket, whether both each in, whether both in bracket marks suitable of whether suitable, whether of which each whether of which within bracket marks to suitable to